keeps thinking my sleeve is...
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it's because it's green.
I don't have green screen on, though. It's
just... All right. We are live. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our August movie club. I kept having to double check to make sure it was August, and I don't know if I thought it was later then or if I thought that it was like earlier. Like, I don't know. Just it wasn't August. I was not thinking about August. But welcome to our movie club. Before we get started here, I'm going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to get this one out of the way really early. There are going to be spoilers. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think it's impossible to talk about Mulholland Drive without having spoilers in it. Not that we've ever had a spoiler-free version of a movie call, but it feels...
It's good to know if you're joining us for the first time, we're not going to be holding anything back. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want anything spoiled, then maybe go watch that and then come back here.
But there's like certain movies where like you don't get like the full story. It is impossible to talk about this movie without spoiling it. So if you haven't seen it, absolutely go watch it before looking it up. But now on to the actual housekeeping that I always say at the start of all of these calls. This is our movie club, but we have 3 different media clubs here at the Dragonfly Arts Collective, which I am going to put our Facebook URL up on the screen here so that you can join us over there. We have 3 multimedia clubs, our movie club. We also have an album listening club where we listen to a musical album and then get together to discuss it. This month, we are actually having it tomorrow night. So you can get on at 7 p.m. Pacific time and join us for a conversation about Gets Gibraltar, which is like the standard bossa nova album. Like, if you don't know who they are, you've definitely heard their music before and you didn't even comprehend it. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. We also have a quarterly book club. We do this one every 3 months. We actually just started a new book this month. We're reading Dracula. This is our classic literature quarter. If you are interested in any of our clubs, I announce new picks on the 1st of the month. So you won't be able to find out what it is until the 1st, which is at some point in the future. But we also have all of our past picks up on the Facebook group. We also don't just do the media clubs within the Facebook group. We are an entire arts group. So we have weekly calls where we talk about problems with being creatives and, you know, the challenges that we face. We have feedback calls. It's just a platform where you can reach out and, you know, ask questions or promote yourself or talk to other creatives and start a discussion that way. It's a great group. And if you're not already a part of it, we hope that you will become one. You can also give me suggestions through the Facebook group and sign up for these clubs. We don't keep a lot of people on the panels. So want to make sure that if you want to be on a panel, you get in touch with me quickly because they fill up pretty fast. And if you like what we do, and you would like to support us, we do have a Patreon. Right now, there aren't any perks, so everything that we offer is free and open to the public. But if you'd like to support us, we do have that. You can support us for as little as $2 a month. And
perks are coming soon, and all your support is greatly appreciated.
Yeah. So yeah, stay in touch if you'd like to hear more about what we have coming up. But without further ado, I do want to get started on our talk about Mulholland Drive. Which, have you guys seen this movie before?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sam, have you seen?
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a standard for like film students.
Yeah, pretty much.
You say that, but Ryan never had to watch it.
Did he have to watch any David Lynch?
I don't know. I don't keep track of the movies he was forced to watch. I just remember it was one of those weird things where I'm not a fan of David Lynch. I haven't seen a lot of his work, and so I had never seen Mulholland Drive. And one of the reasons why I picked it was because whenever I said I'm not a huge fan of David Lynch, people will always respond with, "But have you seen Mulholland Drive?" So I had never seen it before, and when I brought it up, he was like, "Oh, I've never seen that either."
Interesting.
So who knows?
I am a huge David Lynch fan, and watching this made me want to go back and watch all the other ones again because film school was so long ago. I have no recollection. I'm just like, oh yeah, I like that movie. I remember parts of it.
He did have to watch some David Lynch because he had to watch Eraserhead.
Yep, Eraserhead's one of the canon David Lynch film school films.
Yeah. Do you like this movie? Is my second question I always ask.
Overall, yes.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
My review of this movie is it's a pretty good movie. I'm still not a fan of David Lynch, though.
I understand that, yeah.
That could also be a expectations bias. I had that about The Godfather. It was so like hyped up for me that when I finally saw it, I was like, eh.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of his style. I'm not a fan of his way of storytelling. That's not a problem with the movie. That's a problem with me. We'll just get that out of the way.
To each their own. And what, I like to say a lot in our Dragonfly calls is that, you're not going to appeal to everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah. I don't actually know where to start this conversation, though.
It's one of those movies, you don't where to start with the analysis. There's a lot to analyze.
Yeah.
Right. But it is like an interesting movie to talk about as creatives because a huge chunk of it is all about just like the fakeness of Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. I feel like, at least in my interpretation of the film, that's what it is. That's what it is at its essence. Like, it's a commentary on Hollywood and what it does to people, especially. And then, David Lynch has been out and said that it has a lot to do with the phenomenon of the casting couch, or like the known secret in Hollywood about how that business was run for actresses and still is.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I'll also add, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I guess I was surprised. I think the first time I watched this movie, I was in college, which was in Virginia. And so after college, when I moved to Los Angeles, I was maybe a bit surprised that Mulholland Drive is an actual road. And I would actually drive on it at night sometimes, just because I was going over the hill from Burbank to Hollywood and back again. And I think it's a great title for the movie, first of all, because it's a scary road that is very twisty and turny, and it doesn't have the usual guardrails and streetlights. So when you're driving along it, you can see Hollywood from up above, and you see all the lights down there, and it looks very pretty. But one wrong turn, and you'll just crash and die. So that's one thing that I'll point out. But also, I'll say up front, I am a huge fan of David Lynch. I think I would probably consider him my favorite living director. And I don't really get into like super detailed analysis with his movies, like trying to figure out what each exact moment means. But I watched his short films that he made early on, even before Eraserhead, and they kind of unlocked this way of interpreting his other movies for me. And the unlocking is kind of that I feel like with his movies, with his surreal movies, sort of emotion and logic are flipped in a way. So if you're trying to figure out what something means, that might not be that fruitful, or you might just get frustrated trying to figure it out and you'll end up with nothing. But if you think about it in terms of emotion, it becomes a bit easier to understand. So, for instance, with this movie, you see a scene where the director character meets a mystical cowboy who seems to control his life or something. I don't even know. But and by the way, the first time I watched this, I thought that the cowboy was played by Conan O'Brien. But anyway, but that is not the case. But anyway, so the emotional way to think of it is like, well, I'll start. The logical way to think of it is to ask, why is he meeting a mystical cowboy in the middle of nowhere? And I'm saying that line of thinking won't get you very far. But if you think of it emotionally, that this director is feeling controlled in his choices by the studio executives and sort of apparently by mafia people or something. I don't know. Like he's just feeling controlled by forces that are incomprehensible to him. Then the mystical cowboy kind of makes sense because it makes no sense at all in a logical sense. He's just being controlled by forces outside of his knowledge or whatever.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I don't know, that's kind of my way of thinking about his movies in general. And The Cowboy is just a minor example of this, but you can do this with Eraserhead. Like if you ask, why does Eraserhead's baby look like an alien? You won't get anywhere. But if you think, oh, Eraserhead is feeling anxious and scared about having a new child, then you just realize that the baby looks like an alien because he's afraid of it and because he's, afraid of being a new father. It's that kind of thing. It's kind of a long explanation, but it is kind of a simple thing that the emotion and logic is just flipped just to, I don't know. That's
Yeah,
kind of
no,
nice.
that makes sense. David Lynch has said that, any interpretation that you put on his films is the correct one. Like there is no right or wrong answer.
He's also said that he thinks that everybody should watch it with feeling in mind, which is probably why I'm not a fan of his storytelling. I tend to be a more logical based person.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and this movie is very illogical in every way and is pretty much like a fever dream, the entire thing. So,
I mean, it is a fever dream, essentially. That
Yeah.
is the entire plot of the movie. It's why you see like a bunch of vignettes that don't seem to have anything to do with the storyline, but they're so important for the storyline itself, is because it is like a feeling. You want to know. It's less about what the characters are doing and why they're doing it, and more about like why, like how they're feeling a certain way.
Mhm.
Like you feel the director losing control of his life when he walks into his wife sleeping with, I think the repairman is what it actually was in the
pool
dream,
guy.
but it was the
Pool
pool guy.
guy,
Yeah.
Yeah, Billy Ray Cyrus,
yeah, that's right.
Miley Cyrus's dad.
Yeah.
But
Everyone in this movie is so spot on in just what they're portraying, and I love the over the top characters, and it's a really fun ride.
Yeah, ride is a good word for this movie.
yeah, and I think that is an important thing also with David Lynch, that even if you don't try, like if you don't get into interpretation at all, like on a moment by moment basis, it is quite funny at times, and also quite scary at times. So you are going on like this emotional roller coaster, even if you're confused.
I like to think of everything that David Lynch does as an idea more than a fleshed out like story. So it's like it focuses on this one idea, and that's what carries the entire thing. So like for this one, it's the idea of the corruption of Hollywood and like the exploitation of actresses. And that's the whole idea, and that's the entirety of the movie.
I don't know if you had seen it more than once before watching it, probably. But I am curious if that changes, like knowing how it ends changes how you watch like the start of it, because I know that David Lynch like has a list of things to keep an eye on to help better follow the story or something along those like clues.
Yeah, it's like it
Yeah.
clues to unravel the plot or something. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it definitely does change the entire context of what you're watching if you've seen it before.
Yeah, I would say also one huge clue early on is that there's like a POV shot of someone moving in bed that you might not even remember the first time that you watched it, but this is like a very clear indication that you're watching someone
Yeah,
going from one dream to another.
it's like right after the opening like dream sequence of her winning the jitterbug contest, and then it goes straight into someone getting into bed. And that's all you need to know about the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's very clear. It's actually surprisingly clear. Like
Yeah,
once you
but
notice
if
that
you're
stuff.
seeing it for the first time, it just kind of
Mhm.
like goes right over your head.
I think one of my favorite connections from the start of the movie to the end of the movie is her phone next to the red lampshade, because that was something that I noticed. I kind of tried to go into this movie as blind as I possibly could. So I didn't have these things that I was looking for throughout it, but I did like notice that one, and I really like that, where at the start it's like a string of telephone calls of them telling somebody that the girl is still missing, and it finally like you never see her pick up the phone until much later on in the film, but she's the end of that train.
Yeah, one thing that I really love about David Lynch films, and I mean, Twin Peaks is one of my favorite shows, so I include that, is his use of color is very intentional. Nothing as far as color is out of place. Everything is specifically there for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, even in this poster in the middle, which I think most of these are either fan made or from other countries. But the red blue dynamic was very important in this, the use of red versus the use of blue. Yeah, again, I'm trying to like figure out a way to like direct this discussion of just like a movie that the entire first 3/4 of it are just a fever dream. And then the last like quarter of it is just like so dark.
Yeah. There's an
Um,
argument to be made though that the ending isn't what you think it is. I don't know. I've heard several different interpretations.
Did you
And
read
all of
about
them
the
are correct.
Freudian one? The Freudian interpretation, or I guess, yeah, it's been described in Freudian terms, I guess, or it's been described in terms of the idealization of Betty's character.
Yeah, I think a good way to look at the characters in this movie is they're not people, but they're all representations of something. So like Betty is Diane's idealized version of herself making it in Hollywood.
They're all, everybody in the dream exists in the real world, which I just,
But not as they do in the dream.
but not as they do in the dream. My favorite being the guy that's telling a story at the start of it where he's having a bad dream, where he's at the diner, and so he's standing there looking scared, and he's scared of the guy that's out back and doesn't want to go look at it. There's a thing where you can't make up new people in your head. You can only recall people you've already seen.
I have
And
heard that.
he's just one of those weird characters where you only see him once. She's the person like she looks at him as she's making the decision to kill Camilla.
Mhm.
And so he is now in the dream.
Yeah. That's also, I heard a David Lynch commentary about that scene specifically and how the diner, I forget what it's called in the movie, but
Winkies.
Winkies, that's right. It's
Like
specifically,
Denny's.
yeah, and exactly, it's representative of that Denny's on Sunset Boulevard. And he talked in this little commentary bit that I saw about having overheard some casting conversations that made him really uncomfortable in that Denny's. So it's like,
Huh. Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, that scene, when I first saw this movie, that scene was like the scariest thing I had seen up to that point. Like that, the shock, like the build up of it is incredible, and that's kind of where you see the skill of David Lynch as a director, just building up the sense of dread of this guy, like trying to prove to himself that the dream isn't real by going behind the restaurant where he had this nightmare, and then this crazy witch looking person jumps out, and then the guy falls over and grabs his heart like he's having a heart attack or whatever, and then he disappears from the movie until he shows up near the end. But anyway, yeah, that scene is just incredible, I think. And by the way, the person, the scary person, the witch, is played by the actress who later became famous for playing the nun in the horror movies The Nun. Like, very popular now, and a lot of people don't realize that she was in Mulholland Drive, but that's her.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
Not too recognizable, I guess. Yeah.
Huh. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up now.
I was trying to remember there's a name for what that character is, the creature that she played, and it was really bugging me. I was trying to figure that out.
I thought it was just like bum.
Or yeah, bum, or I don't know. Somebody used a term for it, and I don't remember what.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my time after watching this movie trying to remember the start of the movie. And because it's a series of vignettes that are all Diane/Betty's idealized version of her life, where she actually comes to Hollywood and just immediately makes it big based on her talent alone. And the woman that she loves desperately needs her. But there are like these vignettes that are included, like the guy at the Winkies and everything that happens with the director, that are all still relevant to Diane, but just feel so like separated from it that like I had to sit down and be like, what were all the scenes? And I had to pull up the synopsis so that I could remember what the goddamn scenes were.
Yeah, and they all feel disconnected until you kind of think about it as more of a commentary film, because a lot of those scenes, like the people that you never see again, like the big lumbering mafioso who comes to the director's house, and the detectives, and the guys at the table negotiating the actress in the film and all that stuff, like you see those guys like once or twice, and it's all like just an underlying through line that mafia or Hollywood is corrupt and operates like a mafia.
The Freemasons or something. Yeah, mafia, the secret society.
The king of Hollywood.
The idea that there's some kingpin behind the scenes pulling all the strings and every decision is fixed and you have actually no chance. Like, it doesn't matter if you have the talent or you have the drive, or no, all the decisions are already made. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And by the way, the main mafia guy, the one who drinks, or he puts the espresso in his mouth and then spits it out, he's the composer, Angelo Badamenteri.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the.
Another interesting fact.
Yeah, he also composed for Twin Peaks and most of David Lynch's other stuff.
I love the Twin Peaks soundtrack. Oh my gosh. So
I still need to
nostalgic.
I still need to watch that show.
Oh,
Yeah, the I remember the espresso scene. Well, it's maybe one of the more memorable ones.
that scene is so funny. I laughed out loud.
When I was in my college roommates, we had a bunch of DVDs, and then they dug out Mulholland Drive. They're like, "What is this movie? Let's watch this." And then I remember like, "Oh yeah, you guys are watching Mulholland Drive. You gotta tell me what you think about it." There's so many opinions about it and interpretations, and I remember I specifically remember going into the living room when that espresso scene came on, and then they're like, "What the hell?" And then they just started laughing, and then the assassination scene after that, they were like laughing really hard.
Yeah, they play like comedies for sure. I forgot about the espresso scene.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm so sorry. What went wrong? It's the finest in the world. One of them.
I can't express my uncomfortableness at watching somebody like spit an espresso into a napkin.
I know that
like,
is.
And then it's not even like he's not even trying to catch it; it just dribbles right.
No, it's just dribbling down, and like everything, like the homemaker in me came out and was like.
I know. I hate that. I kind of hate that part too. Or in terms of the gross aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's very indicative of just how like the inconsiderate nature of these guys, like how David Lynch views these kind of Hollywood execs and producers and things like that, or like, oh, you know, you're going to serve me the best espresso in the world. Well, it's not good enough for me. I'm going to spit it out on your table.
It's just such a weird middle ground between spitting it out on a table and like getting rid of it properly. Like it is like the most uncomfortable middle of the road you could have gone with.
Yeah.
I guess since this is a movie that has so many interpretations and so many different like twists and turns and symbolism going on, I want to ask if there were any questions that you guys still have. Like, are there just things that you're like, don't really still can't quite grasp it?
No, I mean, I had my ideas from my film school days and doing an analysis of this movie, but it's just solidified after watching it the second time.
Did you have a thesis?
I didn't go that in depth on it, but the discussion did revolve around sort of like the idea that the whole thing is an idea and it's commentary on Hollywood and the unspoken secret and all that stuff.
Yeah, in terms of questions, I'm not sure if I have any. I've seen this movie like countless times, although it has been a while since I've watched it before now. I ended up buying the 4K Blu-ray Criterion edition, and it's very beautiful inside. That it's like it's got the blue key and stuff. And there's the cowboy. And
I thought it was Woody Harrelson when I first saw him, and then I was like, "That's not Woody Harrelson."
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah, and there's this book that comes with it. It's got like a 20-page interview with Lynch.
Oh,
but,
nice.
To be fair, the pages are very small, as you can probably see. So it's not like full 20 pages. But anyway, the point is that I've seen this movie a lot, and I don't think of questions with it. It's kind of like I said earlier, I don't get into detailed interpretations of his movies. Like I remember when Eraserhead came out, some people were timing the shots and saying, "Oh, this one is 13 seconds. Let's look up 13 in like the Talmud or whatever." You know, using numerology with timing and stuff. And that always seemed like the wrong path to take with his movies. And so I just,
according to Lynch, no paths are wrong paths.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
I
But
100% thinks he's the kind of director where somebody's just like, yeah, so you picked 13 seconds for this thing because of this, and he's just like, yeah, sounds great.
He
Yes,
actually there's
nailed
a
it.
I don't remember if it's in Firewalk with Me or a season or like an episode of Twin Peaks, but there's at least one episode or section or something that's about that exactly. Like people overanalyzing his films for nothing, for like no reason.
yeah, I can't remember what scene it would be, but yeah, I think I've seen all of his movies, including all of his short films. And like I kind of said near the beginning, the short films really unlocked something for me. So I'd recommend that everyone watch his early ones. I think the one that really unlocked it for me was called The Grandmother, and he made it before Eraserhead, but it's a I might be combining two of his short films in my mind, but I think in this one the main character is a boy who wets the bed, but then something like a tree grows out of it, and it just sort of made me realize, oh, wetting the bed is an embarrassing thing to do, and having a tree grow out of it just makes it just makes the embarrassment clear to everyone. And so it's sort of like it was this emotional, not quite a metaphor. It was like a direct emotion. Yeah, it's a bit hard to explain, but
Yeah, it's like a
um,
visual representation of an emotion.
yeah, exactly. And that kind of made me see his movie, kind of all of his movies like this, at least all of the surreal ones.
Mhm.
He actually has more straightforward movies than some people realize. Like it seems like half of them are surreal, like Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire, and half of them are kind of straightforward narratives. But anyway,
Yeah, Blue Velvet is much more straightforward, but it's still kind of surreal, especially in its like imagery and use of color.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, but like the Elephant Man, and especially the Straight Story, which by the way was the movie that came out right before Mulholland Drive. He made the Straight Story, which is literally a G-rated Disney movie. It was rated G and released by Disney. It's about an old man driving a tractor across Wisconsin, basically,
Oh.
Midwest, where I'm right now. And it's a true story, and it's a very moving film. I think he may have been nominated for Best Director or something for it. But anyway, if you're not into surrealism, you can still watch some of his other movies, like The Straight Story or The Elephant Man. But anyway,
Um, yeah, I probably should watch more David Lynch. I do think that he is a master at his craft. It's just not something that's for me. Um,
Well, what
I
about you, Rebecca, as a first time watcher? Do you have any questions?
So this is actually where I got this idea from, where I was just like, what is like the pieces of the puzzle? And it's not so much like pieces I haven't quite put together, but things that I'm still rationalizing in my head. And the main one being why she wants like her lover to look like her. Like that is like an emotion that like I'm not quite rationalizing in my head a little bit, where she imagines Rita, I guess, because it's the dream version of it, like wants to cut off her hair and like all of her hair. And she's like, no. If you want to be different, like we'll get you a wig. And then puts on a wig that makes them look almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then immediately tells her that she doesn't have to wear the wig.
not in the house.
Not in the house.
Only in public.
Yeah,
Only in
and that she
public.
looks like a different person. Yeah,
I guess
in
that entire Club Silencio kind of scene, like
Ooh.
where like it's like this very emotional thing, and then the singer passes out and the music still keeps playing because it's a playback.
yeah. Yeah, in some interpretations, they are the same person, and Camilla is her projection of who she wants to be. And so when she kind of realizes the game and what she has to do to get there, that's when they become the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I watched a video that explained it in terms like that. When they become the same person. At first I interpreted it as, oh, she has to disguise herself because she has to hide somewhere. When I
and it
first
could
watched
be that, like with everyone else in her dream, Camilla is a real actress who she knew, who, you know, may or may not have helped her to the top by introducing her to this shortcut. Or she's just, you know, a projection in her mind. I mean, it's a David Lynch movie. There's no way to know for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add other than I don't know, like making the two people or making the main character want the other one to look like her on an emotional level might be like some level of narcissism of like I don't know, just the narcissism of wanting to be a movie star, something like that. But
I wonder if she spent so long wanting to be Camilla, like being jealous of Camilla's space, that she wanted Camilla to become her in a way, or want to be her.
Yeah.
Like her fantasy is that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was picking up on what Derek was putting down. How like she may have misinterpreted her desire for Camilla as love, whereas it was just wanting to be her and be in the place that she is. So in her mind, she makes her just like herself.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thought that I can't get out of my head, and it's an extremely stupid one that nobody is going to, but every single time I saw the director, I wondered where his eyebrows stopped.
He does have a very notable face.
Justin Theroux?
Yeah, so he has like the glasses were almost in line. Like my glasses are in line with my eyebrows, so you can't really see what the shape is. But like when it did a close up, I could always see like two hairs sticking up from the direct middle of it. And I was like, is their hair glued onto the glasses? Like, does he have a unibrow? Like, what is, tell me your secrets.
You mean in the espresso scene studio?
In every scene that he's in the entire time.
There was that one close up though that is making me think of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I need to see if I can find it. It was
like, there's no way
that I kept seeing and I kept thinking about while watching this goddamn movie.
He reminds me of is it J.J. Abrams? One of the directors looks kind of like with the thick glasses and the bushy eyebrows. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he does look like J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, he does.
That's interesting. But yeah, this movie came out before J.J. Abrams became popular, so it's probably not a direct reference, but it is interesting to note the similarities.
I think looking at it, I think he has a crease between his eyebrows, like just trying to look at pictures of him, because it's kind of hard to tell from like screenshots. Anyways, for some reason, this is something that I thought about a lot while watching this.
I just thought about J.J. Abrams every time he was on screen. But yeah, the only other thing that I can say about the Club Silencio scene is that is her realization moment of what she must do and what it means for her and kind of what she has to give up to be there.
She finds the other piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and the singer is the haggard, worn down actress who can no longer hack it, who has given away every part of her soul to get where she's at and dies on stage.
I also don't understand the two old people.
Oh yeah. And they have that sinister moment in the car driving away from the airport.
Yeah, that you sit with them for an uncomfortable period of time, and then they are also a part of, like, the final little bit of fever dream, I guess, when she's actually back in the real world, but contemplating, like, how to end it,
Mhm.
and they
Yeah.
crawl out of a paper bag and then under a
I think,
door.
yeah, I think it has to do with her guilty conscience coming back to haunt her. I'm not clear on what they mean in the beginning, other than giving her like a jumping off point to start her rise to stardom. Oh, I'll see you on the screen. You know.
They're also just uncomfortably happy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is the entire that's entirely Betty. Betty is
Yes.
just uncomfortably happy in a way that, like, kind of is very infuriating.
Yeah, I love the minor details about like the different choices made for each character and how they're presented. Like the fact that her sweater doesn't fit, like it's very naive, very, childlike in her presentation.
Mhm.
The sparkly sweater.
Hmm.
Also a little, like, flower hair clip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when she walks into the bathroom, I think, or the bedroom in the dark, then it sparkles in the dark. I thought that shot was particularly jarring or striking. I don't know if anyone noticed that. But right before she runs into Rita in the shower,
I
Mm.
don't know. I didn't notice.
it almost looked dreamlike. Yeah, one kind of minor detail.
A lot of parts of this movie look dreamlike. I think especially in the very beginning and pertaining to Betty in particular, because it's like it's the dream.
Yeah,
It's how she wishes it would have gone. It's idealized.
right.
Sunshine and roses and sparkles and
Mhm.
rainbows.
Los Angeles just being what Los Angeles looks like in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything just like in the movies.
The most like realistic part of this is that I have driven on Mulholland Drive at night, and people do those kind of drag racing, like that
Oh my
cause the
God.
car accident at the beginning, and it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's just tempting fate.
Mhm.
I saw the start of it, and I was like, "Yep, that makes sense."
Ooh.
Yeah, it's very fitting a name with, you were talking earlier about like the twists and turns that this movie takes, and that's Mulholland Drive.
I haven't been down there in a while, but yeah, I could see that.
Sometimes it's scary to drive even during the day.
It's
Mhm.
true. The people
Yeah.
who know how to drive it way too fast, like way faster than anybody should.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily I've never seen a drag race on there personally. I will say it's
Slowed
also
one
an
down once.
extremely oh, it's also an extremely long road. It like goes all the way across Los Angeles, it seems
Yeah,
like.
doesn't it go all the way to Ventura and then all the way up to like Apple Valley or something?
Yeah,
Apple Valley.
I don't know.
Yeah, it goes crazy long. Like it goes
I'm gonna
from
look
the
it up.
beach
Wait.
to the desert, like through LA.
I
Mm.
didn't know it went that far. Wow.
Oh no, I'm thinking because it ends at the Hollywood sign. Never mind.
Oh.
But it does go to the beach.
It goes pretty far north.
Wow.
Or by north I mean east.
Will your GPS ever take you there if traffic is really bad on Sepulveda and the 405? I can't think of any reason I've driven through there. Would have driven
The
through there
only
recently.
time I go down Mulholland is if I'm going over the hill and Laurel Canyon is backed up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But another fun part of this movie is I know where all these locations are. Like anytime they say like a street name or something, I'm like,
Did it also jar you when they told you that she was living at Havenhurst Avenue and then be like, there's no Havenhurst Avenue on that side of the mountain?
I did think about Havenhurst and what is it, Silver Lake first, or where is Echo Park?
Encino. It's
I've driven on Havenhurst.
Oh yeah. In
Havenhurst
Encino,
Avenue
yeah.
is like close to where I
That's
live.
great. I'm thinking of Hillcrest. No, yeah.
It's actually a very short street, which makes me feel like somebody like either David Lynch lived on Havenhurst Avenue.
Well, no,
because
I actually saw I watched a couple explainers about this movie. because I needed to dive in deeper. But there's where Havenhurst meets Sunset Boulevard, there's like a castle or something. It doesn't actually go as high as she says in the movie as far as numbers, but it ends right there on Sunset Boulevard with like there's like an iconic inn or something that's right there. But David Lynch has said in several places that this movie is kind of his nod to the film Sunset Boulevard, which is what made him want to make movies.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that in the interview in this book, in the Criterion book, somewhere. But yeah, that is something I forgot about. But yeah, I should also point out that this movie was originally a TV pilot, and then it's I think in the special features. To be honest, there aren't that many special features on this Criterion edition.
Oh, bummer.
But I think in one of the interviews, he said that he had a real problem when studio executives told him to make the director stop smoking. And like, oh, actually, it was Justin Theroux. Yeah, Justin Theroux has an interview on here where he talked about in the pilot phase of this project, it turned into a movie surprisingly late, in my opinion, because they were actually shooting and expecting it to be a TV series. And then studio executives came in and they started meddling with things. And one of the things they meddled with was they wanted Justin Theroux's character to either not smoke at all, or they wanted him to smoke and then talk about how much he wants to quit. And that really ticked off David Lynch because he just yelled at them, people smoke in real life. And he couldn't deal with the studio notes in a way. So I'm not sure. In fact, it probably was not his decision to cancel the pilot entirely. But anyway, like he's always been a director who makes accidents part of the project itself. So like getting the pilot canceled and having to turn it into a movie is just par for the course for him. Like for instance on Twin Peaks, the main villain of the whole thing, Bob, was originally just a guy who was accidentally in the shot, but he was like a lighting person tweaking a light, but he was just in the shot one time and David saw him and he was like, oh, that's pretty creepy. Let's make him the whole villain of this huge TV show. So that's just kind of the way he does things. But yeah, anyway, like it's pretty crazy to think that this was supposed to be a TV pilot. And so some of the vignettes in the movie, like those characters who don't really come back, like the cops in the beginning, they probably would have continued if this had been an actual series. Like, they would have been actual characters rather than vignettes.
Oh man, I would have loved for this to be a show.
Would have been interesting as a show, full show.
It would
Yeah,
have
it
been
would have been
really
longer.
interesting. Would have been really interesting as a show. Like, I feel like if it was a show, though, you'd get really, really upset if it gets to the end and it's like, it was all a dream.
Like, damn it. It's underwhelming.
There are like a lot of references to real life things. Naomi Watts actually like sat down with David Lynch and actually discussed with him how she thought about driving off Mulholland Drive once. And so I think he like talked to his actresses and actors and like brought their real life experiences in Hollywood in. Also, the car windshield was based off of Jack Nicholson. When the director comes out and destroys the car. So a lot of like real life examples of things that people go through when they're trying to make it in Hollywood.
Yeah, I
Because
think
unfortunately, it's not just you're really good.
Mhm.
That has very little to do with it, actually,
Mhm.
which is very sad.
as can be evidenced by the mountains of bad TV shows and movies with bad acting and bad writing and bad directing in them.
Mm.
I think one of the most impressive things that I ever worked on was it was like a really bad Lifetime movie,
Mhm.
but
Oh.
the main actor in it gave it his all. Like, we watched the movie afterwards and we're like, he is too good for this. And it made me think about like how many actors there probably are that are just phenomenal, that are just like lost in the Lifetime movies because that's what pays.
Or that's what they can get.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yeah, I think it's ironic that this movie being a critique on Hollywood execs and the Hollywood execs trying to tell him your character needs to not smoke.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And have any of you seen Inland Empire? His next movie after this one?
Yes,
No.
I have. Some friends drive me to see it back in the day.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's another movie about Hollywood. It's another, like the title of it is Another Place near Los Angeles. And this one is about Laura Dern as an actress, although she's already a successful actress at the beginning. But Inland Empire is more abstract than this one, I would say, and it's also
Definitely.
3 hours long. But
It's long. It's long.
so yeah, I would only recommend that one for real Lynch fans. But it's
I
oh
will
yeah,
watch.
Naomi Watts is in it, but she is wearing a rabbit costume the entire time, and like speaking in robotic dialogue, so you don't know it's her. She's just a rabbit, like a
Funny.
rabbit.
Oh, that is her.
I like how he reuses a lot of the same people, like a lot
Mhm.
of actors from Twin Peaks in this movie.
Yeah, like the guy in the chair you see on this poster.
And some others too. Yeah, a lot of people repeat roles in many of his films and movies.
That's very
Yeah.
common with like auteurs.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I think about like Wes Anderson always uses the exact same people. Like, yeah, there's so many of them.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I agree. Like, it's very cool to see loyalty. Like, and also the thing about Lynch is that every actor who I've heard of who has worked with him loved loved it. They like, and also Justin Theroux is also in Inland Empire, and yeah, and all of them love him. Actually, the only one I've heard who didn't like him is the guy in the chair on the poster. The In Twin Peaks, he plays the dwarf who's like dancing in the red
Mhm.
room. Here he's got a prosthetic body to make his body look normal sized, but his head still looks misshapen. But
Oh.
anyway, that guy like started talking smack or something about David Lynch. I would need to look up what his actual grievance was, but
Yeah, because
that's why he was not in the
heard
Twin Peaks.
I've heard a lot of good things about him as a director, both to
Mhm.
work with and just like as a person, which
Yeah.
is not typical in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, like Lynch is super into like transcendental meditation, and he's very into compassion basically, and so yeah, it's just really cool to hear people having good experiences with him basically.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's
to listen to him talk about his concepts, he speaks with a lot of empathy
Mhm.
about his characters and the people that he works with and everything. He seems like a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, he sat down with the actresses and wrote their real life experiences that they had in Hollywood into the movie.
Mhm.
So he really listened to them. And also, as somebody that does make movies that are more based from an emotional standpoint, it makes sense to me that he would have a lot of empathy for other people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Probably a great active listener.
Yeah.
We are coming up on an hour, so I do want to make sure that we hit if anybody else has anything that they'd like to add before we end the stream tonight.
I love his cameo character in Fire Walk with Me. He plays an actual character in that movie, and it's so funny.
You gotta check that one out. I hadn't heard of that one actually.
Yeah.
Watch Twin Peaks first. It's a film of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, his
Okay,
Twin
I
Peaks
will.
character is super funny, and yeah, if I remember correctly, Fire Walk with Me has like a child version of him, in one of the scenes eating the corn, the cream corn.
Yeah.
But also talking about cameos, he's super good in Steven Spielberg's movie where he plays John Ford, the director.
Which movie?
The most recent one, The Fabelmans. So that's another movie about Hollywood, of course. It's a more optimistic view in a way, but because it's Steven Spielberg's autobiography. But he apparently met John Ford when he was like just starting out, and so David Lynch plays John Ford, which was super interesting to see him in a Spielberg movie because they seem like they would be polar opposites. Like Spielberg is very traditional and Lynch is very abstract, but it's just super nice that they have a good relationship with each other, I guess. I don't know. It's cool to see.
Nice.
All right. So I think on that note, I am going to end the stream for tonight, but I do want to thank you all for joining me. And I hope to discuss movies with you again in the future.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching.
Yeah, good pick.
Yeah.
Night.
Bye.
Night.